In the Leyte County Courthouse in Moscow, there he is. From my perspective, seemed relatively comfortable for someone who's facing a potential death sentence in all of this. I want to go back to the affidavit because some significant cell phone activity, digital footprint. Here's what investigators and prosecutors are alleging, that the records for the defendant's phone show that the defendant's phone was using cellular resources to provide coverage to the area of 1122 King Road. That's the scene of the murders, on at least 12 occasions prior to November 13th, which is the night or the early morning hours of the murders. All of these occasions, except for one, occurred in the late evening and early morning of the respective days. So he's right near the home, at least 12 times prior to the murders. Then check this out. This is unbelievable, like total cliche here. Further review indicated that the defendant's phone used cellular resources on November 13th, consistent with leaving the defendant's residence at 9 in the morning, traveling to Moscow, Idaho, specifically to the King Road residence, the house of the murder, between 9:12 and 9:21 a.m. the following morning. He's back there. At least that's what investigators are saying. That's where his phone is, and then returns back to his home at 9:32. Dr. Carol Lieberman, I'm looking at this. What do you think's going through his mind, if this evidence is correct, he's presumed innocent, when he returns to the scene of a quadruple murder the next morning, and there's no police cars, there's no crime scene tape, there's no ambulance, there's nothing, like nothing happened?
Yes. Well, first of all, as you know, I think I've been saying from the very beginning that he's an incel, and all the things we've been finding out since then go along with that, like his stalking of the victims and so on, his choice of the victims and all of that. So incels like to be known for when they kill people or when they have a conquest like this. And so I think in part he was disappointed that that there wasn't the police presence and so on. He's conflicted. On the one hand, he wanted to commit the perfect crime and not be caught, but on the other hand, he did want to be caught and be proud in a sense of what he did. I know that sounds sick, but that's the mind of an incel. And do you know that the incels have started a campaign to free Bryan Kohberger?
Wow. Lauren Vellucci, what are your thoughts about this cell phone activity 12 times before the murders and then back the morning after?
He stalked them. He was stalking these girls, and it wasn't the first time that he was in their house. I guarantee he had gone there plenty of times to know that they didn't keep that sliding glass door locked, and he would be able to get in and out. I think he knew exactly where everyone slept. He knew their rooms, and he knew who he was going to murder. And I think that was very evident when he passed Ellen. He could have ended her life, didn't. And I think it's safe to say that because of where the knife thing is, he probably started upstairs with Kaylee and Maddie and forgot it because of all of the stuff that was going on. I think that they were probably the first victims, and he knew exactly what he was going to do. He had this planned out. The whole affidavit is just premeditation all over it. Premeditation.
Key word for prosecutors. Okay, let's take a look now at some cellular data. We have more. At approximately 2:42 a.m., the suspect's phone pings in Pullman, Washington, and for about 5 minutes, his phone data is consistent with him leaving his apartment and traveling south through Pullman, Washington. Meanwhile, this is amazing. The suspect's white Hyundai Elantra is seen leaving the Washington State University campus at 2:44 a.m. on surveillance video. Then 2:47, the suspect's phone disconnects and stops reporting to the network. While the phone is disconnected, the suspect's vehicle is seen in Moscow at 3:26. It's then seen making 3 passes by the King Road residence between 3:29 and 4 o'clock, then attempting to park at 4:04, and finally at 4:20, his vehicle is seen leaving the King Road residence at a high rate of speed. 20 minutes after the suspect's car is seen leaving, 4:48, his phone is reconnected to the network. At approximately 4:48, his phone reconnects, locating the phone at the Idaho State Highway 95, south of Moscow, Idaho. And then at approximately 5:30 a.m., the suspect's phone location data is consistent with him traveling back to his apartment. Mike King, how reliable is this? How important is it to match the cell phone up with the surveillance video?
Well, yeah, that's the cool part about this case, I think, Vinny, is that they have got the data. They've been able to access the records to show the triangulated location of that mobile device. And that's where they bring 3 towers together and say, hey, we believe that phone or that mobile device is in this general area. Takes a look at the towers themselves and says, what sector was that signal coming off of? And that gives them the ability to start planning out this route. But once they get inside that device and get the actual device location, that XY coordinate from the device, they can really start getting pretty prescriptive about where that thing was at those specific times. But the key things to me, the phone goes dead. The phone gets re-engaged, and they're able to show that as he makes those that route down to the south and back up to the north. And then when things fall apart, he starts moving a whole lot more rapidly from point A to point B. So we see this disorganization kicking in as he starts really getting ramped up emotionally and many other ways.
Joseph Scott Morgan, I don't know if you remember this. I'm sure you do. We covered another case years ago involving a woman named Jodi Arias, whose cell phone went dead for quite some time. No one knew where she was.
Yep.
But that to me, that is almost more compelling than the phone actually being there. The fact that it's turned off at in this window of time.
Yeah, and it goes to, the idea of intent. What is your intent? But I got to bring out one more point here, please.
Absolutely.
Bear with me. Do you remember when this case first came to light and we had those images of the investigators, crime scene investigators? They were out paying very close attention to tire marks on the roadway. You could actually see them. They were these black marks that they were taking a look at. And you mentioned just a second ago how the vehicle left at a high rate of speed. If this is a front wheel drive car, which I think it might be, I'm not really sure. If he peeled out of that area and those marks were specifically left by his vehicle or a vehicle similar to that, that documentation all those weeks back is going to be significant because they have that car now. And there's all kinds of things that you look for in tire marks. First off, you can look at it from a chemical structure. If he left rubber on the road, that can be tied back to those tires. Secondly, the specific markings. Every tire, even though it comes off an assembly line or off a production line, they all might appear the same when they come off the production line, but dependent upon what kind of wear there is on the tread as you go along, it's going to be specific to that vehicle. And if that has been left behind there, that is going to be another tie back. And I found this absolutely fascinating, particularly when you begin to look at this document, where they're describing speed here. And, the only way that you're going to have speed or have these marks is by speed, a sudden burst of speed going forward. And I think this road, if I'm not mistaken, it's not necessarily a cul-de-sac, it's kind of a loop. So I wonder if he peeled out, leaving the scene to loop around to head back out. I'm fascinated to see how this develops and if they can tie that back to that car and to those tires.
All right, folks. Our investigator staying with us, Dr. Carol Lieberman, thank you so much for your help tonight. We'll be speaking a lot about this case in the days ahead. When we come back, DNA. We're going to talk about the DNA and how this could be the one piece of evidence that convinces a jury beyond any and all reasonable doubt. Let's talk about the DNA. We've got to talk about the DNA. Unbelievable what we found inside this probable cause affidavit. Take a look. This is from the investigator saying, I also noticed what appeared to be a tan leather knife sheath laying on the bed next to Maddie's right side when viewed from the door. The sheath was later processed and had K-Bar, USMC, and the United States Marine Corps Eagle, Globe, and Anchor insignia stamped on the outside of it. The Idaho State Lab later located a single source of male DNA suspect profile left on the button snap of the knife sheath. So they found the DNA on an item left behind by the killer, okay? But you just have DNA. You've got to match it to someone. Take a look. On December 28th, the Idaho State Lab reported that a DNA profile obtained from the trash and the DNA profile obtained from the sheath identified a male as not being excluded as the biological father of the suspect profile. At least 99.9998% of the male population would be expected to be excluded from the possibility of being the suspect's biological father. Let's bring back in our guests, Lauren Vellucci, private investigator, Mike King, host of the Profiling Evil podcast, and Joseph Scott Morgan, host of the Body Bags podcast, but also the man who on this show said, I bet they probably took something from the trash. And they did, Joseph.
Yeah, they did. A specific biological tieback. And boy, I tell you, those numbers are hard to defeat when it comes to DNA. You know, we can talk about a lot of other connectivity as far as forensics go, but when you begin to look at the overwhelming odds that it could be someone else, it's very hard to explain that away. And they're going to try to. But, you know, the fact that, you know, people have made a big deal out of the fact that there is no weapon at this point in time, at least that we know of. We don't know everything, okay? But the fact that the sheath was left behind, and we've heard all kinds of stories, haven't we? You know, we've heard Rambo knife, we've heard K-bar, essentially, hunting knife, military-style knife. Well, it turns out this is a military-style knife, and it's got a hilt on it, and it's got a hilt guard. And so, but what people might not understand is that with most of these hunting military-style knives, they come with a sheath. And that is, this is essentially a holster for a knife, if you will, to put it in very simple terms, that you can wear on your belt. Military does this. And so he left this behind. So this means he wasn't wearing it around his waist. He more than likely came in holding the knife that was held in the sheath, removed the knife from the sheath, and he had to click. You know, they talked about that spot, that button up there, which is where they recovered that DNA from. Now, I don't know what the source of that DNA was. I don't know if it was blood or if it was sweat. It's hard to tell at this point, but nonetheless, they tied that back, and then they tied it back to the trash. They have this common denominator that is his father, you know, and when you're thinking about all of this from the perspective of, you know, like genetic genealogy, where you're going back and you're trying to tie people back, this is the end of the road here. This means that you've created this profile. And again, these numbers are astronomical when you begin to talk about it. And it's going to be a tough hill to climb for the defense.
Mike King, as Lauren mentioned earlier this hour, do you agree? Do you think that the fact that the sheath is found in the upstairs bedroom, that Kaylee and Maddie were the first two victims and perhaps the real target here?
You know, that's a tough one to think about. It may be that he got disorganized as he went through this whole thing, and that's when he left it behind. And as I was listening to this description of the knife being found there, I had this flashback of sitting in San Quentin prison interviewing a kid named Brandon Wilson, who murdered a little 9-year-old boy down on the beach in Oceanside, California. And he talked about, Vinny, just that physical reaction of pulling the knife out of a sheath before he murdered this little boy. And he was so excited as he was doing that. And I've never forgotten that, and the emotion that these offenders are going through as they're going through these crimes. So I think it's a mixed bag. It could have been that it was victim number one and the target. I think more importantly, though, it might have been a sign that he was starting to lose control as he went through this process. And that's, again, why I think he probably walked by this young woman as he left the house. He was so focused and had such tunnel vision.
You know, you think about all the things that were happening that night. Something else that happened, Lauren, was the fact that there was a DoorDash delivery at 4 a.m. And to me, I mean, this DoorDash delivery could have been in the middle of everything that was happening, but it wasn't. And I'm wondering, if that tells us maybe he's staking the place out enough. Does he even know that a DoorDash delivery is coming?
Yeah, he absolutely knew. He waited and he saw it, and then he figured, okay, now is a safe time to enter. Maybe everyone is sleeping, going to bed. He absolutely knew. This guy was so narcissistic. I think the reason he was studying all of these things like criminology and all of that was he wanted to beat the system. He wanted to be able to beat and make that perfect crime. And so for me, he thought he was very smart. And he is smart on a lot of levels, but not smart enough to realize that you can't commit the perfect crime. And I think that it just goes to show, like, I was concerned. I will admit I was concerned about the investigation. But the police were just brilliant in everything that they did. They told the public basically that they had nothing, and it was all so that they could play to his narcissism and grandiosity to think that he had gotten away with it. And so it was just brilliant, and I tip my hat to them. It's amazing.
It really is.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
Great work. Thank you all so much for joining us on this really significant night.